What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be checking out probably the most versatile gimbal available today for your mirrorless cameras. And so this is the WEEBILL-S. Alright guys, so the WEEBILL-S comes in this box here, and it's smaller than you would think. It's quite thin and not very large. Now I remember buying my first gimbal, which was also from this company. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. Zhiyun, maybe. I think I even called it Zhiyun a while back. But it was a Crane M, and it was okay for what it was intended, but it was a little weak on the motor, so it wasn't able to really do that great. But I've filmed with it so much, and I mostly used the smaller point shoot cameras. And so recently I started upgrading my camera gear, and I realized that I'm going to need a much stronger gimbal, and this is where the WEEBILL-S here comes in. Now the previous model of this gimbal was a Weebill Lab, and that apparently wasn't as good because of its weaker motors. So the WEEBILL-S here improves on all of those factors, and it's supposed to be much better and more versatile for pretty much any lens and camera combinations. Of course, applying to mirrorless cameras with standard lenses. So yeah, the box is quite clean, quite small. We just have a few pictures, not too much information here. We do have a picture of everything that's included, or the accessories. So there is a seal here on the top we need to cut. 2 flaps. It just slides out of there. So that's pretty cool. It's like a piece of paper with the Zhiyun logo engraved into it. So it is plastic wrapped. Alright, and this is pretty nice and tidy. So we get some paperwork here. Card here that shows us all the parts that I guess are available for this gimbal and the different packages available. Let's see what's in here. Okay, so a quick start guide and a service card, and it does have quite a few languages. And so this is how the gimbal is packed. Now it doesn't look like that this packaging here is made for reusability or like a case. I think it's just strictly packaging. Not sure which one's the bottom and the top. This is actually the top. Alright, so here we can see all of the pieces to the gimbal. Very nicely packed and organized. So let's grab the main piece here. And right away, I really like that it has the locking axes. So everything is locked and not just flying around everywhere. So overall, feels really good. And the first thing you really notice is how small it is. I really like the small form factor. Alright, so let's see what else we get here. So we do get the legs. And I guess this doubles up as a handle, and it is all plastic, looks like, but it does feel pretty durable. And we got rubber grip on the outside. So actually it feels good, much better than I thought it would be. And here on the legs we have a little locking and unlocking pin. So if you want to lock it in, it can lock in. We'll check out what that's for and how it works on the gimbal. We got nice heavy duty rubber on the top, so very nice quality. So here we have our adapter, and this is going to connect to the camera. So your camera is going to go on top here. And what's included is also this little Y bracket, and this is for the lens to sit on top to kind of support it. And also I'm noticing that we do have some kind of quick release here. Okay, yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. And then there's a little lock on the other side here. So very nice. So it looks like we get a little raising adapter that can raise the camera up higher if needed for more clearance. And over here we get a battery charger for the batteries. So these are the 18650 batteries, and that's what makes this gimbal quite nice also, is because you can just get more batteries and then never really run out of juice. And the battery charger looks pretty nice also. So I definitely like that. And the last thing here we have looks like some cables. There's quite a few of them in there actually. So we got a few cables here that connect to cameras. So some cameras are going to have more interactions with the gimbal than others depending on what the software allows. Since we're going to be using Sony, I think we're a little bit more limited, but we're going to try it out and see what we can do. So this should work with many different brands. So we also get a USB Type-C charging cable, and that's for the charger to charge the batteries. Let's grab our legs and screw them on. That feels pretty good. Now, because all of this is plastic, I can definitely hear a little bit of flexing and a creak. So I guess that could be somewhat of a negative. It feels a little cheap around these areas. Now there is a rubber grip right here, so it's not like it's completely all plastic, but it does kind of give you a little bit of a cheaper feeling, I guess. So this is what the gimbal looks like just sitting there, and it's a really nice size, guys. And that's kind of a big deal for me because I don't want anything large. I want something that's quite convenient and quick and easy to set up. So let's go ahead and unlock all of the axes. So the great thing about these locks is that when we do go to leveling it, we can lock all of the axes and then unlock them one by one as we level each one individually. All right, so let's go ahead and install the batteries. Now the good news is that when you do have them charged, they will last for quite a long time before they drain. Something like 12 to 14 hours depending, you know, on your camera, the weight, and how well it's balanced. Let's go ahead and plug the charger in. And now we are charging. We can see the two little red dots indicating charge. And this is the camera and lens combination we'll be using. So this is the Sony A7Ⅲ with a 24mm G Master lens. So the lens is quite heavy, almost a pound, and the camera is a little more than half of that. So not a heavy combination, but we are front heavy because of the big lens, and also because our camera is so small here on the bottom, the lens protrudes. And so when mounting this thing to the bracket, if we set it down, we can see how that doesn't work out because the lens is literally, you know, not level with the bracket. So in this case, we'll have to use this adapter to go to the camera. So let's grab one of our little bolts. And on one end, there's some threads there where the bolt can thread through. And as it goes through, it falls in and then it can slide around. So that's how you get it in and out. So now we're going to simply line it up to the camera in this position. So for this, you need either a flat screwdriver or some coin or something that you can put in there and twist it with. So that's pretty tight. And now we can put it on this bracket, which will line up perfectly just like that. Now on the lens, we can line up this little support where it could sit right under here. And underneath, we have two mounting points. Again, we have to put these little bolts through. So we need to thread them in there. So that's 1 and 2. And so now we're just going to line everything up so we can slide it back and forth as we need it on the lens here. So about right there should be good. So we can go ahead and tighten these up. And then the lens supporting bracket, we'll just raise it up and tighten this knob here. And now everything is supported. So the lens is supported and the camera. And so this is great to have this little piece here because like this camera here doesn't have much of a bottom. If it wasn't for this little brace here, it would really want to tip, especially with this lens. So it's nice that they include this little Y bracket here to hold the lens. So simple as that, we got the camera mounted to the plate and now we can put it onto the gimbal. So we should be able to just slide on here. And there is a pin right here that we have to push to slide in, and that keeps it from completely falling out. And so now we're ready to balance it. And so balancing this thing out is not too hard. We do have quite a few movements to make, but they're all pretty logical. And because we have all these locks everywhere and everything's locked, we can do every step at a time, and that makes it quite easy. So let's start here with the first one, this motor here. So let's go ahead and unlock it. So once we unlock it, we can see right away that the camera just falls right down. Here we have two adjustments. We have an up and down right here, and then in and out. So we actually have two planes we have to adjust. We have to adjust up and down plane and then backwards and forwards plane. So this is the trickiest one to adjust because you have to adjust both of them. So the first thing I like to do next is move the camera side to side until it balances itself. So since it wants to fall this way, we're going to move it backwards until it's happy. So once it levels out, looks like it's about level here. It doesn't want to fall either way. That's pretty good right there. Now for the next part, you want to level this part. So when you bring the camera up like this, vertical, it needs to stay, but it falls this way. So that means we need more weight to go up. So if we loosen this and go up just a little bit, let's see what that does. And there we go. You guys can see now it's holding. So it's pretty close actually right there. So you guys saw there, that's quite simple. And we're done with our first axis. So now we can go to our second one, which is this motor here. So let's go ahead and unlock it, see what happens. So right away, it wants to fall that way pretty hard. So that means we have too much weight on this side. We need to slide it the other way. So I'm gonna unlock it under here, and we're gonna slide it the other way. We can get it kind of close, about right there, looks like. So you guys can see it's not falling anymore. It seems to be pretty happy where it's at. So let's just go side to side here. Okay, so it stays. And stays. At this point, no matter where you put your camera, it should stay there pretty much. So I mean, if it's off just a little bit, like if it's moving just a tiny bit, that's not a big deal. I mean, once you're this close, you're definitely close enough. Now, if you were doing an extra heavy camera with an extra heavy lens, then you want to obviously fine tune it the best you can, because the better you tune it, the less these motors have to work to hold it. I'm really happy about that, and you guys saw that was very easy. So we still have one more axis, and that is this motor down here. So this is the main motor. So let's go ahead and unlock it. And you guys can see, obviously, it's not going to matter in this position. So what do you do to balance it? Well, the way this one balances is you have to raise the gimbal up. So how you would be holding it, you raise it and you put it on an angle. If I can explain this correctly, but if you put it sideways like this, you see right away that the back over there just falls down. It's just falling down. So that means we need to counter the weight the other way. Remember, so we're going to loosen this fastener and slide it over quite a bit. Let's lock it right there and see what happens now. Okay, so now it's going up, so we went too far. So let's go back a little bit. So let's see what that feels like. So it's still barely going up, so we need to go back a little more. So I guess I went too far. And there we go, it's stable. So now I'm holding the gimbal crooked completely, and everything is stable. No matter what I do to it, it should sit pretty much there. Like I said earlier, if it moves just a little bit, it's okay. You know, you can't get it completely exactly perfect. I mean, you could, I guess, if you spend a lot of time with it, but I mean, this right here is pretty much where you want to be. So yeah, as simple as that, guys. Our gimbal is balanced. So as you can see, it's not too hard. And once you do it a few times, you'll get used to it pretty quick. But if you do use only one camera with one setup, you know, you really only have to do this once and then pretty much forget about it. And even for this gimbal, if you have a zoom, it should be able to handle it anyways. But if you do have a zoom lens and it's quite heavy, you want to balance the gimbal somewhere in between. So zoom it out about halfway if your barrel travels. That way you can find a medium between completely zoomed out and or the other way zoomed in. And that will give you the best balance without having to adjust the gimbal constantly when zooming in and out. So our batteries are full and the lights turn from red to this blue. Pull them out. So if we look at this piece here, there's a little lid that slides out underneath. And that's where our batteries will go. And so they simply just sit in there. We got minus on both ends and plus on the other ends. So it's quite easy to do. Just like that, and then put the lid back on. And we're good to go. So now that we got our batteries in, let's go ahead and click this power button and see what happens. All right, so I see something's lighting up here and we're powered up. So on the display screen, it says PF, and then we have the battery indicator. So we're gonna go over all these controls and what they do and how to use them. Well, let's go ahead and see if this thing's working like intended. So I'm just gonna grab it and move it down, and sure enough, it is. And if I move the joystick here, we can see we can control the motion up and down. And it seems to be very stable and pretty smooth, actually. I like the feeling. Also, when I bought this gimbal, it actually came with a handle, and it's a nice aluminum handle by Momin, so it looks pretty cool. The reason I really like this option, and you guys can see it's already built for this gimbal because it has the little nubs there to lock into the gimbal so it doesn't spin around. And so the reason I really wanted this is because I didn't want to constantly remove this one and put it up here whenever I want to do the low shots. So having this handle here, go ahead and screw it on there, is going to really make it simple to grab it and start shooting low. And then when you want to put it down, you still have your legs to go down. Now they do have little connectors, like quick releases you can buy for this, where you can quickly go from the bottom to the top, but then you're still changing. And you know, that could get clumsy and you can't put your camera down. And I feel like a handle like this is a lot more useful and valuable, and it even has a cold shoe up here if you wanted to put any kind of accessories, kind of like maybe a monitor or something. Alright, so we jumped to a different location and I put the hood on the lens also. So I want to quickly go over all the functions, or at least the ones I could figure out here. To power it on, we're going to click the power button for a few seconds and it's going to light up. So here we have a little toggle between PF and L, and PF stands for pan follow, and then L stands for lock. And on the front we have our POV button, a little record button, the joystick, and then we got a rotary knob with the selector there. So when you first power it on, it goes to pan follow mode, and pan follow does exactly that. It follows where you pan. So it doesn't move anywhere from there. It follows the panning. So if we switch it to L, what that's going to do is going to lock it onto where it was looking no matter what you do. Going to be always pointing that way. So I'm going to switch it back to PF. Now POV, so it stands for first person view. So no matter how you move it, like even if I go sideways, you guys can see the camera follows. So it does all of the axes, no matter where you tilt it, the camera will go. So if you want to go sideways, you can see here, you can go sideways. So this could be quite useful for sure. Yeah, you can even go upside down, obviously, if you want. But it just goes in any direction you point it. Now, if we double click POV, it's going to go into vortex mode. And so in vortex mode, it looks straight with the handle, and then you can use the joystick to move the camera one way or the other to spin it in a circle. So you can get those barrel shots. And you know, this could be quite useful if that's the look you're going for. So double click it again and it'll go back to PF. Now if we hit the POV 3 times, I'm going to set it down so you guys can see a little better. So 1, 2, 3. It goes into selfie mode. So if you want to, you know, film yourself from the gimbal, you could do that. Obviously this handle would have to go, but so if we hit it 3 times again, it'll go back to pan follow. Now this gimbal also has a sport mode, and if you hold the function button, you can see that it says go. What that means is that the gimbal is going to react really fast to motion. So you guys can see how quick it reacts to everything. So even up and down, it's really, really quick. So if you're going to do some action, the function button turns the go mode on, which makes it extremely responsive. So great for things like sports or any kind of action. So because all these controls are right on the handle, there is a chance to bump them off, and I already did that a few times just by accidentally clicking stuff. So there is a way to disable all these buttons, and all we're going to do is just going to click on the LV button here twice. When we do that, it's going to say key lock on the screen, and so now no matter what we do, it's going to be locked. And this is only for the front control panel. All the other buttons are still going to work. So, and if we press it twice again, it turns it off. So yeah, that's pretty much all the basic controls. Not too hard to understand. Just got to get used to it. Now, if you want to keep the gimbal on, but release the motors, what you're going to do is you're going to hit the POV button for 2 seconds, and that's actually going to put it to sleep. So you guys can see, even though it's on, the motors are asleep, or they're not doing anything, they're off. So take it back, you just hold it 2 more seconds and it goes back to where it was. So one thing that's quite important to do when you first start using it is to go in the menu, and we can see there's 3 little dots here. If we go down, we can see we can choose from a few things. We've got motor, camera, advance, wheel, and joystick. So these are all the controls that you could do, and that's what makes this gimbal quite intriguing, is that you don't need to connect it to your phone to do any kind of settings. So, but yeah, if you go to motor, click next here, we got auto, level, and custom. If we click on auto, it's going to auto tune it. And so you don't have to go through the hassle of trying to figure out what the best strength is for the motors. It'll do it itself. And it seems to work really good. I haven't really tried it much, but it seems to get it where it needs it. But yeah, it's simple as that. It's finished. But they do have an app called ZY Play that you can connect to and control the gimbal from there. So I already downloaded this. Let's go ahead and open it up. And so when you first open the app, it's a little bit confusing trying to find the WEEBILL-S. But what you got to do is you got to go through different models that they have. And the WEEBILL-S is under the section where it's called for pro cameras. So I was a little confused of how to find the WEEBILL-S in the beginning. But once you find that, you can click up here and then you'll be able to find all of their more pro stuff, and the WEEBILL-S naturally is right there. So once you find it, you connect to it, and this is the dashboard that comes up. So here we have a record button, picture button, and here you got some controls of panoramic, time-lapse, and trajectory photographs. So here you can set it to go certain places over a certain time, I guess. Now I'm not sure if my camera here is going to be compatible with all this, because the Sony seems to be limited on this gimbal. We're going to try to plug it in and see what it can do. So here we have controls where we can tilt it one way or the other, and on the bottom is a joystick where it controls like you would normally control. And here we have a zoom, but it's grayed out because it's not available. So clicking over here, we got different options. We can change from pan follow, lock, and the go option. On the very top, we can see the gimbal battery and I guess what appears to be the phone battery. Settings, change the scene mode. I'm not sure exactly what this is for. It says follow gimbal, walking motion. Camera brand, I guess set to Panasonic for some reason. Let's go ahead and set that to Sony. So here's a 6-sided calibration. So if you need to calibrate your gimbal, you can do that here. The strength of the motors, it's on low. Motor calibration and device information. So yeah, pretty basic and could be useful functions, but the coolest function in here is right over here. If we click on these little dots, you're going to see on the bottom it says here sync motion. If we click on that, we're going to be able to sync our phone with the gimbal, and it's going to do exactly what the phone does. To turn that on, we just toggle this on like that. Okay, so the gimbal actually went to sleep from just waiting around. So let's click the POV for a couple seconds and wake it up. All right, so now it's connected to the phone, and you guys can see whatever I do, it does there. So it's not exactly immediate, but it's pretty good. If you go, you know, reasonably slow, it follows very precisely. This feature is actually really cool if you can figure out how to use it, or I guess figure out what you could use it for. It acts kind of like a tripod. So if you don't have a tripod with you, you could use the gimbal kind of like a tripod. So I guess this is just to mimic what the phone does. And it's pretty quick, I guess. You guys can see once it's, but it's pretty cool how it moves. Surprisingly quite responsive. But you can adjust the settings here of how hard and how fast the speed and the smoothness. Like if you want it smoother, you can go all the way up. It should be pretty smooth. Let's try that. Oh yeah, that's much smoother. So you can adjust all this to be how you want it. So yeah, and that's pretty much all the features of the app. Alright guys, so for the next part, I want to try to connect the camera to the gimbal and see if we can get anything to work. Because if we can get the shutter button to work, at least the record button, that would be kind of nice. So the cable I'm using is micro USB to micro USB. So we're going to plug one side into the camera, and the other side, show you guys, there's a little port right here that plugs in here. So okay, so our camera acknowledged that something's plugged in. We might have to change the settings in the camera to get it to communicate, but the gimbal's sleeping right now, so let's wake it up. So after messing around for a little while, I realized I was using the wrong cable. So the one we used was the micro USB style, but the one we need is this multi-port one. It's a little bit more thinner and it has a lot more contacts inside. On the label, it's called a multi-USB cable. So if we plug that in into our camera, it should work now. So I'm going to push the record button and it starts recording. So the record button is working now, and that is very useful actually. So the most annoying thing that you can do on a gimbal is constantly be pushing the record button on the camera. So it's really nice to be able to control it here. Now I don't think we're going to be able to control much more than that. And I am quite curious if we can push the record here on the app also. And sure enough we can. So yeah, that is already going to be a huge help there. So alright, well that's cool that at least we can do that. Now one thing I wish did work with the Sony cameras is the clear image zoom. That would have been very nice, clear image zoom from here, or even maybe on this wheel here, but I don't know if that's possible. Probably not. But we do have the record button, so I'm happy about that. Alright, so I think we spent enough time messing around with it. Let's get out there and make some footage. So we're going to be shooting with a Sony A7Ⅲ so it does not have any stabilization at all. And the 24mm 1.4 G Master lens, which also doesn't have stabilization. So if there's going to be any kind of vibrations, you're going to definitely see it. Consider this a worst case scenario. Alright, so let's get to it. Alright guys, so I'm really happy with this gimbal overall. I did get some time to use it and I'm really enjoying it, especially the smoothness and the operation. Everything just seems to work very well. And one of my favorite features as I keep using it is the quick release So there is a little locking bolt here, I guess, or pin that you have to unscrew, and then you can just push on this other side and it releases the whole camera from the gimbal. And this fits pretty much on any tripod, no problem, and goes back on really easy also, just like that. And we're gonna lock it in and it's secure. So yeah, they're so convenient and makes it really simple to get off the gimbal and back on again. So I don't really have too many negative things to say, except for maybe the construction is a little bit flimsy and cheap feeling on the plastic here. I wish they would have did something a little different there. And then another thing is compatibility with Sony cameras is not very good at all at the moment. Now there might be a workaround, at least what I've seen. I haven't tried it yet, so maybe it is possible. But I would have liked to see more compatibility, especially, you know, if I could have used this knob here, the big one, for something. Another thing I noticed is this thing is very powerful. So if your setup is not super heavy, you want to set your motor level to low, and that works really well for most average things. So if you hear any kind of buzzing in the motors while you're using it, it's probably because it's not set to low. Somehow I set mine to medium and that was causing some buzzing in the motors. It's really easy to tune a camera on here and get going. Like, it won't take long. I mean, it only took me less than 2-3 minutes to just set up any camera, so I like that about it for sure. Another awesome thing is that it has all the manual controls you would need right here on this display, so you don't have to be connecting to an app to control anything. So if you're the kind of person that doesn't like to use your phone for everything, this is great for that. But then again, they do have a pretty good app that does give you more options and features. Another great thing about the WEEBILL-S here is it has these locks for all the 3 axes, and that makes it a lot easier to adjust it. And also, if you're putting it away, you can just lock it up in a more compact way and it won't be flopping around everywhere. Plus, the battery life on this thing is excellent. Unless you're doing really long sessions, you know, it'll last quite a bit. So yeah, the WEEBILL-S seems to be great at pretty much everything. And I think its biggest strength overall is the form factor with the amount of weight that it could do. Now, if you have something crazy like cinema cameras, things like that, it's obviously it's not for that. Any larger mirrorless cameras or DSLRs with pretty decent sized lenses, this thing will be able to handle them. So if you're thinking about this thing, I would say definitely a thumbs up for me, because it does everything I want it to do. And plus, not needing a phone for me is kind of a big deal. So yeah, if you're looking for a good quality gimbal for not, I guess, a crazy price, Zhiyun Weebill-S here does the trick. So if you want to pick up one for yourself, I'm going to have some links in the description. Check it out. And if you guys enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this and other things I do on this channel, then stay tuned for more. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.